The view from the 45th floor of the Boston high-rise office building was a small daily comfort for Megan Wilson. She had established herself as a senior financial consultant at Morgan Stanley. The autumn foliage visible from her window momentarily drew her thoughts away from reality. "Ms. Wilson, I've completed the portfolio analysis for the Johnson family." Brought back to the present by her assistant's voice, Megan smiled gently. "Thank you, Charlie. I'll review it right away." On her desk, papers were arranged methodically, and her computer screen displayed complex spreadsheets. Megan had shown a special talent for numbers since childhood and was the only one in her family to attend college, earning an MBA from Harvard Business School. Her parents, George and Martha, were a high school teacher and a part-time nurse. While they preached the value of education, they were lenient with her sister Taylor but strict with Megan. In the quiet of her office, Megan unconsciously rubbed the ring finger of her left hand. A wedding ring should have been there. Her divorce 3 years ago was one of the most painful events in her life. Despite numerous fertility treatments, they couldn't conceive, and the pressure gradually eroded their marriage. Her desperate wish to have children remained unfulfilled, and eventually, her ex-husband Brian left her in search of a normal family. Megan took a sip of coffee and checked her phone screen. 3 unread messages from her mother. She sighed deeply. Probably about her sister Taylor again. Taylor had dropped out of high school and spent her days partying without holding a steady job. Her parents doted on her, constantly saying, young people should enjoy life freely. Meanwhile, they expected Megan to be the responsible sister and clean up after Taylor's messes. Last year, Taylor became pregnant after a brief relationship. The man disappeared quickly. Her parents declared their full support for Taylor, respecting her decisions. Megan inwardly recognized that most of this support came from her own wallet. After finishing work, Megan headed to her apartment. Instead of the luxury condominiums where many of her colleagues lived, she had chosen a modest 2-bedroom apartment on the north side of town. The affordable rent was important to her because most of her income went toward supporting her family and saving for the future. "Good evening, Megan." Edwin, the building manager, greeted her warmly. He was a gentleman who looked forward to the homemade cookies Megan brought every weekend. "Good evening, Edwin. How was your day?" She smiled genuinely. This small conversation made the end of her day a little warmer. Entering her apartment, Megan took off her suit, removed her contact lenses, and put on her glasses. This space was her sanctuary. Simple, functional furniture, a few beautiful landscape photographs on the walls, and potted herbs on her small balcony that she carefully tended. This modest lifestyle was her own choice. Taking lemon water from the refrigerator, she checked her mother's messages. "Megan, can you come for dinner tomorrow? Taylor has an important announcement. Come at 6. Waiting for your reply." She shrugged. She could imagine what this meant. Taylor had probably found another new dream. Last time, she announced she wanted to become a beautician and asked Megan to pay for school. Of course, she got bored after 2 weeks. Megan replied, "All right, I'll be there at 6. She opened her monthly budget spreadsheet and reviewed her expenses. Daycare costs for Taylor's son Noah, assistance with her parents' mortgage, her father's diabetes treatment, care for her mother's arthritis, repayment of her father's previous gambling debts, the list went on and on. Finishing her calculations, Megan sat by the window and gazed at the city lights. Nobody in her family knew that she had been quietly making payments for 10 years. Without thanks or recognition, she was only gossiped about behind her back as the rich sister or the stingy single woman. She smiled bitterly. Her family didn't understand her at all. For her, financially supporting her family was both a responsibility and an expression of love. She had given up trying to make them understand. Looking out the window, Megan prepared herself mentally for tomorrow's important announcement. Whatever happened, she intended to respond calmly as always. The next evening, Megan stood at the entrance of her parents' house. The white two-story home where she had grown up increasingly needed repairs. She noticed areas where the paint was peeling and the garden was neglected. She took a deep breath and knocked on the door. "Megan, you came." Martha opened the door with a slightly tense expression. From inside, the energetic voice of Taylor's son Noah could be heard. "I promised I would," Megan answered quietly and entered the house. In the living room, her father George was relaxing in front of the television, and Taylor was sitting on the floor playing with 2-year-old Noah. Megan politely greeted everyone and presented Noah with a teddy bear. "Here's a new toy, Noah." Megan spoke softly to her nephew. The reality of her inability to have children sent a pain through her chest, but she tried not to show it in her expression. Noah innocently smiled and hugged the teddy bear. Dinner started in a pleasant atmosphere, but around dessert time, Taylor abruptly changed the subject. "I actually have a major announcement." Taylor looked directly at her sister. "Noah's daycare said they're raising their fees next month. Also, I want to attend a special school to become a beautician." Megan listened silently. She already sensed the true purpose of this important announcement. George cleared his throat and said, "So, Megan, we have a little favor to ask you. You want me to cover the daycare and school fees, right?" Megan said calmly. "That's right," Martha interjected. "Since you're financially successful, it's only natural for you to help the family. Taylor is raising a child on her own." Megan carefully chose her words before speaking. "I have my own life. I'm already doing a lot." "What are you doing?" George's voice grew louder. "You're only thinking about yourself. Living in a luxury apartment, looking down on us." Megan frowned. "I don't live in a luxury apartment. And..." "No excuses," Martha interrupted. "Taylor wants to study for her future. If you help a little, both her and Noah's lives will improve." Taylor smiled provocatively and said, "Since you're a defective woman who can't even have children, why don't you pay? Looking at my child is the least you can do to contribute to the family." Those words froze Megan's heart. The mockery of her divorce and infertility hurt her more than she could have imagined. However, she suppressed her emotions and tried to respond rationally. "Taylor, that's too cruel," Megan said quietly. "My financial situation isn't as comfortable as you all think. My monthly expenses are..." "Liar." George slammed the table. "Your salary is 3 times mine. What are you doing for your family?" Megan was surprised. "Dad, I help with your mortgage, medical expenses, and..." "What are you talking about?" Martha looked confused. "We pay for everything ourselves." Megan was stunned. Her parents seemed completely unaware of her financial support over the past 10 years. Probably, her father had processed her remittances as household income and given her mother a different explanation. "Mom, I've been financially supporting the family for years. I'm not bringing this up to talk about it, just to say that I can't take on any more burden." "I don't believe you." Taylor raised her voice. "I'm a single mother. I don't live luxuriously like you." Megan's patience reached its limit. "Taylor, I'm paying for Noah's daycare too. Most of my salary goes to the family. You just don't know about it." After a moment of silence, George's face turned red with anger. "What are you saying? Are you trying to embarrass me?" Megan was confused. "Dad, I'm just stating facts." "Enough." George stood up. "If you won't give us money, fine. But as a family member, you should be ashamed. Not being able to help your sister and nephew." "I'm doing everything I can," Megan quietly insisted. "But I can't continue bearing unlimited expenses." Martha shook her head with a sad face. "I don't want such an ungrateful daughter." You're no longer family." Tears welled up in Megan's eyes at those words. George went upstairs, returned with Megan's coat and bag, and threw them at the front door. "Don't show your face again. Taylor is enough for us." He tossed Megan's belongings out the front door. Taylor laughed triumphantly, saying, "Goodbye. We'll be fine without you." Megan stood frozen, trying to understand what had happened. She never imagined that all her years of sacrifice, everything she had given up, and her unconditional support for her family would end like this. "I understand," she said quietly, picking up her belongings. "If this is what you all want." No one tried to stop her. Megan left the house holding back tears. Once in her car, her emotions finally overflowed, and she began to cry quietly. That night, back in her apartment, Megan took a long shower, trying to sort through her feelings. For 10 years, she had sacrificed much for her family. She had put aside her own dreams, luxuries, and sometimes even necessities. Yet, her family called her ungrateful. Megan opened her computer and checked her bank account. Then she made a decision. She clicked the button to stop all automatic payments, her parents' mortgage, Taylor's daycare expenses, her father's medical bills, and all other financial support to her family. "It's over," she whispered quietly. It was a cold, clear decision marking the end of 10 years of sacrifice and support. For the first time, Megan felt the freedom to live just for herself. It was a painful freedom, but a necessary step. 2 weeks passed. She immersed herself in work and began taking time for herself that she had postponed for years. Her colleagues noticed the change. She smiled more often, started going to the gym during lunch breaks, and even joined colleagues for dinner on Friday nights. "Megan, could you check this report?" Her boss Brenda approached her desk. Of course, Megan smiled. Inwardly, she felt guilty about financially cutting off her family. But at the same time, she experienced a sense of relief, like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Released from the pressure of sacrificing her own life for 10 years, her bank account had a substantial balance for the first time. Meanwhile, a different reality was unfolding at the Wilson home. George Wilson was just checking the mail. He opened an envelope marked "Urgent" in red, and his face changed color. "Martha," he called his wife. "Do you know what this is?" Martha came from the kitchen and took the envelope. It was a payment reminder for their mortgage. "Your payment is 2 weeks overdue. Please respond immediately," it read. "That's strange," Martha frowned. "There was no problem last month." George scratched his head with a confused expression. "I'll call the bank." On the phone, the bank representative explained calmly, "Mr. Wilson, your automatic payment has been cancelled. For the past 10 years, it was paid from another account, but that registration was cancelled 2 weeks ago." George was speechless. "Another account? Whose?" "From Ms. Megan Wilson's account." After hanging up, George and Martha stared at each other in shock. Megan had been paying their mortgage. What she said was true. That afternoon, more bad news arrived. There was a call from George's diabetes specialist. "Mr. Wilson, tomorrow's appointment has been cancelled," the nurse said on the phone. "Why?" "I didn't change my appointment. There seems to be a payment issue. Your insurance subsidy has been stopped." George was stunned. His expensive specialist medical fees had insurance coverage and a copay, but the copay had always mysteriously been paid. Could that have been Megan too? The same day, Martha's in-home care nurse for her arthritis also cancelled her visit. The reason was the same: payment issues. In the evening, Taylor rushed into her parents' house crying, carrying Noah and looking distressed. "The landlord came," she said with a trembling voice. "He said the guarantor cancelled the contract, so I need to pay a new security deposit or move out." "Guarantor?" Martha was confused. Who was the guarantor? I don't know, but I got an email notification this morning. Taylor explained through tears. The daycare also contacted me saying next month's tuition hasn't been paid. While the family was in turmoil, the doorbell rang. George opened it to find an unfamiliar man. Are you George Wilson? The man asked coldly. I'm Jameson from Credit Recovery. I'm here to discuss your unpaid debts. The color drained from George's face. He had gambling debts he had hidden from his family for years. Mysteriously, the payments had continued monthly, so there had been no problems. Dad, what's he talking about? Taylor peeked out from the living room. Just a small debt. Don't worry, we'll manage. George couldn't hide his distress. That evening, a family meeting was held around the kitchen table. A pile of bills had accumulated, and everyone was speechless at the total amount. How have we been paying all these bills? Martha questioned her husband. George's shoulders slumped. Honestly, I don't know. The money was always enough. It was paid by automatic bank withdrawals. What about Dad's debts? Taylor asked. Those too, somehow they were being taken care of. He held his head. Taylor suddenly said in a quiet voice, wasn't Megan paying for everything? A heavy silence fell over the room. Impossible, George denied. She didn't do anything for us. But everything started happening after she left. Taylor continued. The bank, the doctors, my apartment, the daycare, was Megan supporting it all? Martha slowly stood up and went to the old filing cabinet. She took out several years' worth of bank statements and began examining them carefully. There were regular deposit records. The sender's name was M. Wilson. 10 years. Martha whispered with a shocked expression. Megan has been sending money every month. George covered his face with both hands. Why did she keep quiet? Why didn't she tell us? She did, Taylor answered quietly. That day, Megan told us. But we didn't listen. I called her defective. Her voice choked. That night, the Wilson family faced the truth for the first time. They realized that Megan had been quietly supporting the family for 10 years. That her successful life was actually modest. And how cruel they had been to her. The next morning, Taylor made a decision. She left Noah with her mother and went to look for Megan. She first went to her apartment, but the manager Edwin told her, she's out. Could you please give her a message? Taylor pleaded. You're the one who hurt her. Edwin looked at her with cold eyes. Megan is a wonderful person. She bakes cookies for me once a week. She's always thinking of others. You family members didn't appreciate her value. Taylor bowed her head. Yes, we were foolish. She's probably at work, Edwin said finally. Taylor took a taxi to Megan's office. Looking up at the high-rise building, she took a deep breath. She was determined to reflect on her past arrogance and insensitivity and apologize sincerely. When she found Megan, tears were flowing from Taylor's eyes. Her former arrogance was gone, and she said with a trembling voice. Please, help us. On the 45th floor of Morgan Stanley, morning sunlight streamed into Megan's office. She was focused on analyzing investment portfolios. For the past 2 weeks, she had immersed herself in work to ease the pain of separating from her family. Even when she occasionally felt a pain in her chest, she told herself it was the right decision. Ms. Wilson, her assistant Charlie called over the intercom. You have a visitor. A Ms. Taylor Wilson. Megan's hands stopped. Just hearing her sister's name vividly brought back memories of that night. Her throat went dry. Could you turn her away? Megan answered calmly. She seems quite distraught. Charlie's voice was confused. She appears to be crying. Megan sighed deeply. All right. I'll see her for 5 minutes. Shortly after, the office door opened, and Taylor entered. She looked different from what Megan had imagined. Gone was her usual confident attitude, her face was pale with fatigue and anxiety, wearing no makeup. Her eyes were red from crying, and she desperately clutched a cheap handbag. Megan. Taylor's voice was trembling. What is it? Megan didn't rise from her chair and gave her sister a cold look. What do you want from someone who's not family? Taylor cried as she forced out words. Please, help us, our house is about to be foreclosed. Mom and Dad are sick and can't buy medicine. We can't pay for Noah's daycare. Megan maintained an expressionless face as she listened to Taylor's words. In her heart, sympathy and anger were mixed. The feeling that she couldn't abandon her family conflicted with her anger over the humiliating treatment that night. I see, Megan finally spoke. What do you want me to do? Please, help us, Taylor pleaded again. I was wrong. Without you, we are. Why did you come to me? Megan asked calmly. I thought I was useless and defective. Taylor was shocked by Megan's words and raised her face. Her eyes showed remorse. You've been supporting everything. Taylor's voice was hoarse. Megan opened her desk drawer and took out a thick file. Look at this. Taylor received the file with trembling hands. It contained 10 years of payment records, loan guarantee documents, medical expense receipts, and debt repayment statements, all neatly arranged. Everything was for the family. All this was you. Taylor stared at the documents in disbelief. Yes, Megan answered quietly. Dad's mortgage, medical expenses, gambling debt repayments. Mom's arthritis treatment. Your apartment guarantee and Noah's daycare costs. I paid for everything. The color drained from Taylor's face. But, why did you keep quiet? Megan gave a slightly ironic smile. At first, because Dad would be embarrassed. Then, because I realized no one wanted to know. You all thought of me as the rich sister or the stingy career woman, right? Taylor was speechless and collapsed into a chair. We did terrible things. Yes, Megan said matter-of-factly. For 10 years, I was never thanked. Just criticized, ridiculed, and then thrown out. A heavy silence filled the office. Outside the window, the city of Boston was in its usual hustle and bustle. Between the two sisters lay years of misunderstanding and mutual hurt. Megan, Taylor said quietly. After you left, everything started falling apart. I didn't realize how important you were. I only understood after losing you. Looking out the window, Megan said, that's ironic. Dad can't buy his diabetes medication, and he's getting worse, Taylor continued. Mom's arthritis has worsened, and she can barely move. I tried to find work, but... Because you have no qualifications, Megan said calmly. Taylor nodded. Yes. I didn't even finish high school. She raised her face. Megan, I've been living without thinking about anything. The hurtful words I said, especially about children, please forgive me. Megan unconsciously touched the ring finger of her left hand. Where her wedding ring had been. Taylor's words cut into her deepest wound. Didn't you know? Megan asked quietly. How much I wanted children. How many fertility treatments I underwent. That it was the reason for my divorce. Taylor answered with a trembling voice, I didn't know. I only thought about myself. She added through tears, you were always so kind to Noah. I sometimes wondered why. Noah is an innocent child, Megan said. He's my nephew. I love him. Taylor looked up. Megan, How can I get your forgiveness? We need your help. But we'll never take you for granted again. I promise. Megan was silent for a long time. Various emotions swirled in her heart. Anger, hurt, and deep love. She loved her family. That hadn't changed. But she also knew she couldn't return to the previous one-sided relationship. Taylor, Megan finally spoke. Whether I help you is up to me. But first, I need to talk to the whole family. Taylor's eyes lit up with hope. Anything you say. First, we need to tell our parents the truth, Megan said with a stern expression. Including Dad's gambling problem. Taylor asked with a surprised look, gambling problem. Dad has had a gambling addiction for years, Megan explained. I've been covering that too. Dad has hidden it from Mom, but that time is over. Taylor nodded with a shocked expression. I understand, we'll tell them everything. And, Megan continued, we can't go back to how things were before. If I help you, there are conditions. Taylor, you need to study seriously and get a proper job. Dad needs to get treatment for his gambling addiction. And everyone needs to stop wasteful spending. Taylor nodded with a serious expression. I understand. I really want to change. For Noah's sake too. And finally, Megan stood up, I'm not your bank. I can help, but I won't carry everything. Everyone must take responsibility. Taylor stood up and took a step toward her sister. Megan. I'm truly sorry. I was arrogant and foolish. Megan felt the emotional wall she had built over the years gradually crumbling. She tried to maintain her composure, but her heart was moved by her sister's sincere apology. Let's have a family meeting, Megan said quietly. Tonight, at my apartment. Bring our parents. Tears welled up in Taylor's eyes. Thank you, for giving us a chance. Megan nodded slightly. I haven't forgiven you yet. But, your family. Before leaving the office, Taylor turned back and said in a small voice, you're not defective. You're the strongest and kindest person among us. Noah is lucky to have an aunt like you. After she left, Megan stood by the window, gazing into the distance. For 10 years, she had devoted herself to her family. But now, for the first time, she saw the possibility of building a true family bond. It wouldn't be an easy journey. It would take time to rebuild trust. However, a small light of hope glowed in Megan's heart. Hope for a new relationship with her family, one where they respected each other. She took a deep breath, preparing to take a step toward tomorrow. 3 years later, in a small park in suburban Boston. The autumn sunlight shone golden, and fallen leaves danced in the wind. Megan sat on a bench watching Noah play on the equipment. Now 5 years old, her energetic nephew ran around, occasionally shouting, Aunt Megan, watch me. Amazing, Noah. Megan waved back. He's really grown, said a voice. Turning around, she saw Taylor approaching with 2 warm coffees. She looked like a different person from 3 years ago. A confident expression, neat business casual attire, and above all, a quiet composure in her eyes. Thank you, Megan accepted the coffee. How was your interview today? Taylor answered with a smile, it went well. I'll likely become a permanent employee in the hospital's medical administration department. Much better conditions than my current contract position. The sisters sat side by side, quietly looking at the scenery. Over these 3 years, their family had changed dramatically. Beginning with that night's family meeting. At first, it was a confrontation with harsh reality. Their father's confession of gambling addiction, their mother's surprise and anger, and the full picture of the debts the entire family had accumulated. Megan decided to support her family with conditions. Taylor attended night school and obtained a medical administration qualification. Their parents began a modest lifestyle, and George received treatment for his gambling addiction. The first year was particularly difficult, with many near relapses. But this time, the family was united. "How are Mom and Dad today?" Megan asked. "Dad's blood sugar is stable. Mom says her new treatment has reduced her joint pain," Taylor answered. "Last week, they said they paid off their last debt." Megan smiled. "That's good." "Megan," Taylor looked at her sister with a serious expression. "Without you, what would have become of us?" "That's in the past," Megan said gently. "What's important is what everyone has learned." Taylor nodded. She now runs a support group for single mothers, helping women in similar situations. Her former arrogance had turned to humility, and she passed on the lessons learned from her sister to others. "Will Daniel be coming to dinner next week?" Taylor asked. Megan blushed. Daniel was a pediatrician she had met a year ago, and they had built a serious relationship. "Yes, he's looking forward to it." "How about your adoption application?" "It's progressing," Megan's eyes sparkled. "We should be at the interview stage soon." Noah ran over and jumped onto their laps. "Aunt, Mom, I want ice cream." The sisters laughed together. Taylor gently stroked Noah's hair and said, "Noah, what do you say to Aunt Megan?" "Thank you for always helping us," Noah said innocently. Megan felt a warmth in her chest. Sometimes the most beautiful gifts come from the most painful places. Her family had almost broken apart but was rebuilt stronger and healthier. "Let's go get some ice cream," Megan stood up and took Noah's hand. Walking through the park at dusk, Megan quietly savored a sense of satisfaction. She had lost some things, but what she gained was even greater. A true family bond, mutual understanding and respect, and above all, the strength to recognize her own worth. This was her story. The story of Megan Wilson, who was hurt, cast out, and then recovered.